Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching World Today. The historic visit of the first Indian Prime Minister ever to Ukraine. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's recent visit to Ukraine amid its ongoing conflict highlights India's strategic autonomy and its nuanced approach to balancing relations with both Russia and the Western nations. Modi's trip underscored a clear and consistent message that war is not the solution. Here is a report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi in war-torn Ukraine pushing for peace. After a 10-hour rail journey from Poland, the Prime Minister reached Kyiv on Friday, where he met the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Modi's visit to Ukraine reflects India's strategic autonomy and its effort to balance relations with Russia and the West. This is not the first time New Delhi has expressed its stand on restoring peace through dialogue and diplomacy. Prime Minister Modi, during his recent visit to Moscow, had emphasized that peace is of utmost importance and a solution to the war cannot be found on the battlefield.
कि हमारी भावी पीढ़ी के उज्जवल भविष्य के लिए शांति सर्वाधिक आवश्यक है, लेकिन मैं ये भी जानता हूं कि युद्ध के मैदान में समाधान संभव नहीं होते हैं। बम, बंदूक और गोलियों के बीच समाधान और शांति वार्ताएं सफल नहीं होती हैं।
During his opening remarks at the G20 summit in Delhi, Modi had appealed to the world to work together.
G20 के प्रेसिडेंट के तौर पर भारत पूरी दुनिया का आह्वान करता है कि हम मिलकर सबसे पहले इस ग्लोबल ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट को एक विश्वास, एक भरोसे में बदलें। यह हम सभी के साथ मिलकर चलने का समय है और इसलिए सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास, सबका प्रयास का मंत्र हम सभी के लिए एक पथ प्रदर्शक बन सकता है।
Just a couple of days ago in Poland, the Prime Minister reiterated that this is not an era of war.
बुद्ध की बात आती है तो जो युद्ध नहीं शांति पर विश्वास करती है, ये युद्ध का युग नहीं है। ये उन चुनौतियों से निपटने के लिए एकजुट होने का समय है जिनसे मानवता को सबसे बड़े खतरे हैं।
Modi's Ukraine visit, the first by an Indian Prime Minister since its independence in 1991, sends a strong message to the global community, emphasizing India's consistent support for peace through dialogue and diplomacy. Bureau Report, India Today.
Ukraine launched one of the largest drone attacks on Russia. Russian air defense reportedly destroyed 45 Ukrainian drones, while on the other hand, Ukrainian army advances into Russian region of Kursk has been one of the biggest moves when it comes to breaching Russian territory by Ukraine.
Ukraine launched one of its biggest drone attacks on Moscow. Russian authorities claimed that their air defense systems had destroyed 45 Ukrainian drones, including 11 over Moscow, 2 over the Belgorod border region and 2 in Kursk. Since the Ukrainians began incursion into Kursk region weeks ago, its forces have destroyed key bridges in an effort to cripple Moscow's logistical capabilities and disrupt supply routes. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visited border region of Sumy and held a meeting with the army commander. Meanwhile, Russian authorities in the western Kursk region have begun installing concrete shelters to protect civilians amid the ongoing Ukrainian incursion. Russian President Vladimir Putin accused Ukraine of trying to strike Russia's Kursk nuclear power. Putin said Moscow had informed the UN nuclear watchdog about the situation.
The enemy tried to strike at the nuclear power station last night. The International Atomic Energy Agency has been informed. They promised to come themselves, to send specialists to assess the situation. I hope that in the end, this will be done on their part.
Earlier, Putin also held a meeting with senior officials about the situation in Russian regions bordering Ukraine and the incursion of Ukrainian troops into the Kursk region. Ukraine's foreign ministry reported that Kyiv has made more territorial gains in the Kursk region than Moscow has made in Ukraine this year. Russia has called the Kursk incursion an escalation. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
The four-day Democratic National Convention concluded in Chicago, the United States of America. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris formally accepted the Democratic presidential nomination, delivering a forceful speech that laid out her vision for the country while warning about the possibility of former President Donald Trump returning to the White House.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Capping off the fourth and final day of the Democratic National Convention, Harris recited her life story and background before directly taking on Trump and laying out a position on several hot-button issues, including the war in Gaza, immigration, abortion, and more.
Fellow Americans, this election is not only the most important of our lives, it is one of the most important in the life of our nation. In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious.
During the four-day convention, the party spelled out its agenda for the coming elections and for the country should Harris be elected president on the 5th of November. While both the Republicans and the Democrats have polar opposite views on most issues, there's one issue that could become a deciding factor for Kamala Harris. Yes, the question here is if reproductive rights could win Kamala Harris the elections or not. On the back foot, Harris' camp does not have much to show for on economy, employment, border issues, conflicts such as the Israel-Hamas war. Therefore, while these issues were part of her speech, what figured prominently was the question of legalizing abortion across the country.
One must ask, why exactly is it that they don't trust women? Well, we trust women. We trust women. And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law.
According to polls conducted by Pew Research Center and data collected by the center, currently 63% say abortion should be legal in all or most cases, while 36% say it should be illegal in all or most cases. Religion and socio-political as also socio-economic factors have played a major role in how people decide on the question of abortion. According to Pew Research Center, about 3/4 of white evangelical Protestants think abortion should be illegal in all or most cases. By contrast, 86% of religiously unaffiliated Americans say abortion should be legal in all or most cases, as do 71% of black Protestants, 64% of white non-evangelical Protestants, and 59% of Catholics.
We are the heirs to the greatest democracy in the history of the world. And on behalf of our children and our grandchildren and all those who sacrificed so dearly for our freedom and liberty, we must be worthy of this moment. It is now our turn to do what generations before us have done, guided by optimism and faith, to fight for this country we love, to fight for the ideals we cherish, and to uphold the awesome responsibility that comes with the greatest privilege on earth, the privilege and pride of being an American.
Trump and Harris are headed for a toughly contested election, and what each side uses to his or her advantage could make a marked difference. For Harris, it could be the cause of reproductive rights for women. This U.S. election, it's the continuing war of words between Trump and Harris that has caught the imagination of almost all viewers, not just in America, but across the world. At the convention, Kamala attacked Donald Trump for his stance in the Roe versus Wade case. She also attacked Trump for not supporting and also dissuading Republicans not to back a bipartisan deal on the border issue. Let's listen into the war of words, this time between Trump and Harris.
She's the worst vice president / border czar. She was the border czar. All of a sudden she's saying she's not. I don't want to get you in trouble. But she's the border czar. All of a sudden she's saying I'm not the border czar. You know why she says that? Because there's never been a border in the whole world that's leaked like this border, with all those millions and millions of criminals coming through. Many of them are criminals.
After decades in law enforcement, I know the importance of safety and security, especially at our border. Last year, Joe and I brought together Democrats and conservative Republicans to write the strongest border bill in decades. The Border Patrol endorsed it. But Donald Trump believes a border deal would hurt his campaign. So he ordered his allies in Congress to kill the deal. Well, I refuse to play politics with our security, and here is my pledge to you. As president, I will bring back the bipartisan border security bill that he killed, and I will sign it into law.
No regrets. No, I wouldn't have regrets. Again, I did something that was, most people felt undoable. They didn't want it in the federal government. It shouldn't be in the halls of the federal government. It should be in the state governments. And I was able to bring it back to the state governments, and now the people are voting.
As a part of his agenda, he and his allies would limit access to birth control, ban medication abortion, and enact a nationwide abortion ban with or without Congress. Well, we trust women. We trust women. And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law.
And I will shut down the Federal Department of Education, and we will move everything back to the states where it belongs and where they can individualize education and do it with the love for their children.
We are not going to let him eliminate the Department of Education that funds our public schools. We are not going to let him end programs like Head Start that provide preschool and child care for our children. America, we are not going back.
They made up everything, so many different stories. They made up about Project 25. They've been told officially, legally, in every way, that we have nothing to do with Project 25. They know it, but they bring it up anyway. They bring up every single thing that you can bring up Every one of them was false. He brought them up.
And we know what a second Trump term would look like. It's all laid out in Project 2025, written by his closest advisors. And its sum total is to pull our country back to the past. But America, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back.
The second night at the Democratic National Convention was a fire as the Obamas expressed their support for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Michelle Obama described Harris's nomination as America Hope making a comeback. We bring you this report on the fiery speeches delivered by the Obamas.
It was a frenzy night on the second day of the Democratic National Convention as the Obamas rained blows on Donald Trump. The power couple set the stage on fire as they delivered emotional speeches back-to-back, expressing their way to second Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as the 47th President and Vice President of the United States of America, respectively. First Lady Michelle Obama reminded the crowd at the DNC of her humble beginning and how her mother and Kamala Harris's mother shared and taught the same values to their daughters, even though they were ocean apart.
Kamala Harris and I built our lives on those same foundational values. Even though our mothers grew up an ocean apart, they shared the same belief in the promise of this country. That's why her mother moved here from India at 19. She'd often tell her daughter, "Don't sit around and complain about things, do something." Michelle Obama is asking you, no, I'm telling y'all to do something.
Michelle slammed the unjust and false narrative of Trump, belittling the vice president on the basis of color and race. She also took a jibe at Trump's ambition for the White House job.
For years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hard-working, highly educated, successful people who happen to be black. Wait. I want to know, who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs?
The First Lady believes that the fight is not over yet.
America, hope is making a comeback. Yeah. Please welcome America's 44th President and the love of my life, Barack Obama.
Michelle then introduced the 44th President of the United States and the love of her life, Barack Obama. The former president echoed the thoughts of his wife as he gave a clarion call to Americans to fight.
The torch has been passed. Now it is up to all of us to fight for the America we believe in. And make no mistake, it will be a fight. For all the incredible energy we've been able to generate over the last few weeks, for all the rallies and the memes, this will still be a tight race in a closely divided country. A country where too many Americans are still struggling. Where a lot of Americans don't believe government can help. Yes, she can.
Obama, while referring to conspiracies and theories built up by Trump, took a jibe at the age of the former president.
Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. It has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala.
Obama then asked the crowd to look forward for a new chapter rather than a flop sequel.
We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse. So let's get to work. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.
The first day of the DNC saw the US President Joe Biden, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, delivering motivational and emotional speeches, backing Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, in an exclusive conversation with Malaysia's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim on Spotlight this weekend, we discussed various issues, including contentious issues such as the Zakir Naik problem between India and Malaysia, as also the questions on Kashmir and Hamas. Take a look. What are Malaysia's assurances when it comes to one very concerning area for India, which is Zakir Naik? I know you've made your own statements there, but is there anything that India has provided which is good enough for an extradition of Zakir Naik to India?
Well, there has been issues raised, although not this time, but then, of course, politely, the External Affairs Minister did make a reference to that. And I've said, look, we have to respect the due process. He's not been active in Malaysia. He travels outside, but he comes back to Malaysia from time to time. He has not issued any statement or any political statement that's against India or against Malaysia. So I think a number of reasons let the matter rest for a while.
He did make statements, but you were not in power then. It was Mr. Mohammed. So just saying that, is Zakir Naik an issue that impacts bilateral ties?
No, we do appreciate the concern expressed by some quarters here, but I think as long as he does not create issues between our countries and the security of a nation, I think we let the matter rest.
Okay, and should there be more evidence that India provides?
Yeah, of course, we are a country, we must respect the rule of law, and we will not condone any sort of transgression.
Kashmir and Pakistan, Kashmir specifically had been a very important point of agenda for Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, the then Prime Minister. What is the position now of the Malaysian government, your government, in how India handles Kashmir and the situation between India and Pakistan?
We have not taken an open position, but in private we do, express concern, which most people express, including here, about the need to ensure that there's peace and security, and the need to reduce tensions, because any tension in areas, any area, whether it's in Afghanistan or Kashmir or Malaysia or whatever, would invariably cause this reaction and ending suspicion and anger. But I still consider that purely a domestic issue of India. We have every right, as Indians have every right, to question some of the issues in Malaysia on a private basis, not to be deemed to be causing friction between the countries.
That's all in this edition of World Today. Stay tuned to India Today for all the latest news and updates. Goodbye and take care.